decision. If a police officer will do something that is deemed irresponsible, you will see them handing in their badge and their firearm. Not here. If it is that you try to do, and I'll just give you quick examples after Mr. Chandler speaks. Many police officers, they know the court, they are bush lawyers, and every single decision and comment made, they have to find a way because it is all about me, and not about service to self. I see that as a very serious issue. In fact, right now, it has now been brought to my attention that an organization decides to have a meeting tomorrow afternoon during working hours with all the legal officers in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service during working hours without the common courtesy of even asking me, bringing it to my attention, or even informing the head of legal. This is what we speak about indiscipline that I need to remove. But I will ask Mr. Chandler to proceed, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, the Commissioner of Police, the Office of Commissioner of Police, is constantly being attacked from all different aspects. And as head of legal department, I am so too attacked. And whether it's the authority or the autonomy to do something and to make decisions in terms of making changes and moving towards improving the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This is as a result of the winds of change. The winds of change brought about by the Commissioner of Police, and with my assistance in the fight against rogue, corrupt police officers, the fight against indiscipline within the organization. It is clear that there is fear of change, because the change is imminent, change in terms of the way we do things on a daily basis. The fact is that it is no secret that we have corrupt, rogue police officers, indisciplined police officers, yes, but they are a few and far in between. And they tend to broad brush all police officers, including the hard-working, diligent, dedicated police officers who are out there doing what they need to do. And aspersions are cast upon them by virtue of the actions of others, by just a few. And then there's the issue of the bodies, the organizations, the persons within the TTPS who want to defend and justify everything, every officer, whether good, bad, wrong, indifferent. They just feel the need to fight. Why is that? You know, I am asking them, what do you stand for? What does your organization, what do you, the individual, stand for? Is it that you're fighting just because that's all you are there to do, that's all you know to do, that you just want to fight the change or anything that is not in line with your regular status quo and the way things are done? No, the fact of the matter is that change is here. And, you know, so too, I want to put it out there that the Commissioner and myself, we would have met what is in here right now. So let's not play any games. Let's not put water in our mouth to say that these officers, these organizations, they are ably supported by officers within the TTPS right now, even senior officers to that extent. And that being the case, you know, it is apparent to me that this fear of change and what it brings, it's really something that is being fought against. And I want them to tell the country, you know, really and truly, is it that they are going to fight on behalf of every indisciplined, every rogue, every corrupt police officer just because they feel that that is their role and function? What is their clear mandate? I've heard it now being bandied about. Well, what is the authority of the head legal as a civilian to make orders and to do things for the administration of the legal department within the TTPS? But I want them to know that at the beginning, ab initio, my contract and what I was hired to do includes that of making orders. This is done at the behest of the Commissioner, all right, at his directions. And once I understand all the challenges that we face, part of the change that we are going to be advocating and be pushing forward with is legislative reform, particularly as it pertains to the Police Service Act, Chapter 1501 and the regulations, and even the Special Reserve Act, Chapter 1503. And we are going to be recommending sweeping reforms to the Parliament in order to have this done. And what we would hope is that the changes that we need in the law, that it is not used as some sort of political football, but that there is a mature approach to the changes that we require in order to steadfastly and properly bring change to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Because Trinidad and Tobago deserves a bigger, a better, and a brighter police service. That's what they need. That's what they deserve. And that is what the Commissioner of Police is here to do, given my assistance. And that's what we will continue to do without fear or favor of anyone. So for those who want to stand and oppose for no good reason at all, I'm saying to you, as we move forward, whatever you're saying, let us hear your justification and your reasons for it. All right? I'll leave you now. I'll turn you back over to the Commissioner.
Thank you. So just to clarify, as I stated, what is supposed to be is that the police service, police officers are supposed to be more disciplined and basically have less rights than the average citizen, as the police officers are expected to be at a higher standard. Unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, I have seen it has become just the opposite. Whereas I do not think that anyone could question the fact that this Commissioner of Police or no senior officer probably would have fought openly for his men and women in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and I will continue to do so. I will continue to fight to defend the image and the reputation of a great institution and each and every police officer. And that's what I'm here to do, to fight and defend my officers. But in the same manner, I would not have rogue officers try to beat the system, remain where they are posted, try to commit further unethical acts, and then have organizations try to defend them. So I have a battle to fight, because this has been a culture within the police service for years. And again, I want to continue to stress this. We are speaking about 2 to 3% of rogue elements. And instead of persons trying to cast aspersions on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I think society, or when it speak about questionable persons, criminal elements, it is more than 2 to 3%. However, we are expected to be at a higher standard. And this is what I intend to do. And I find it's very disturbing when I'm trying to clean up the police service, even within the police service, there are persons who feel that they have a right to do what it is they're doing. I'll just give you some quick examples. In the private sector, if you're in a large organization and you're transferred from one part of, to another, from one group in the organization to another, that is not a problem in the private sector. In this Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, on more than one occasion, if someone is transferred, they know how to rush to court, they know how to protest, they will go to different bodies to fight for their rights. It is my right. I belong in the Western Division. I belong in CID. I belong in where and you have no right to remove me. Now, bearing in mind, we do not just do this by whim and fancy. At times, it is based on the training of the individual. We believe that the person, sometimes it's to help the individual. Sometimes it is based on intelligence, where we have seen and we have discovered that police officers will be in strategic positions where they've been involved in assisting criminal elements, tipping off criminal elements, running drug blocks, and committing acts. So sometimes they are very upset when they are transferred because I'm affecting their business. As I said, in the private sector, you move from one location to another, it is not a problem. Likewise, if you're in the private sector, if you move from one department to another, not just one location to another, that is okay. In the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, at times, if you move from one unit to another, they run to court, they run to a lawyer, they run for pre-action protocol, because it's their right that they must stay in that unit because it affects their pay. This is when we start speaking about service before self. Where does it go? You swear an oath towards God, country, and the people. And instead of having service before self, it starts going the other way around. And then sometimes persons are transferred. When I see an officer, they claim 76 hours overtime per week. Now, when you add the 76 to 40, you get about 116, divided by 6. I have police officers claiming they come to work at 6 in the morning and they leave 4 next morning, 6 days a week, and it is signed by persons. And then when it is I decide to transfer these individuals to make sure they rush to court, they rush with their legal letters because they find it is their right to state and feel they could fool me to say that they're working 22 hours a day. We then go to a situation where recently we are in a situation in this country dealing with COVID, dealing with post-COVID, with expecting gangs to, because there are gangs, criminal activities, that's a non-essential business. They intend to come out very strong. And then there's the general election. So as the Commissioner of Police, I have a lot of work to do. And we're in a situation that is not the norm. And the government decides to buy out the leave of a very senior police officer who's very qualified, very experienced, and we believe that he has what it takes. But no, people will jump up and say, no, but somebody else could do it. It is his chance. To the members of the media, I am not running a windball tournament or competition on the beach that if somebody is batting too long, I am going to ask him, it's time to hand over your bat so somebody else could get a chance. Then I am running an organization and I have a position of responsibility to deal with lives. This is not about somebody shouting out, well, it's his chance now, it's his time to get up there and to be in another position. So that person should not buy out, have his leave bought out. I see that as being selfish, being irresponsible, and not caring about the bigger picture. Even with the situation when it comes to leave, some persons, what we have in the police service before, persons will accumulate leave sometimes for years, and this will cause a backlog where some police officers may be acting 2 ranks above their substantive rank. And then if it is, we try to ask them to, well, maybe you need to go on leave because when you do that now, I will lose a lot of that experience. They say, no, you cannot tell me I must not go on leave. I want to have my leave accumulated. We can speak about the big one. The average citizen in this country, in any business, in private sector, if you are in prison for a violent crime, you would be fired. Not in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. They say, no, a police officer, leave him and let him get his pay. Because, so what we have, $50 million per annum the taxpayers are paying for police officers who are out there on disciplinary matters. Now, I have a problem with that. And some persons say, no, let the police officer get paid. Why then give the Commissioner of Police the authority to fire when it is that every single time when there's a situation based on discipline, based on investigation, based on sometimes persons being in prison for years for violent crime, you are saying that no, he should be paid and remain as a police officer. This might be probably the only police service in the world where we have police officers in prison for years and are still being paid and recognized as police officers. And we have organizations fighting me down on that. So I can go on and on from police officers taking extracts, screenshots of station diaries, giving sensitive information to the public. But all of this, for you to deal with a problem, you don't hide it. I'm admitting that there is a problem. But the fact of the matter is the public, they're starting to understand that we are dealing with the problem, which is why there was from 14% public support on the police service, it has now increased to 30+%. Because now we are accepting that there is a problem, and we are dealing with it. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to show that in the transformation of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are getting fight back. We are getting fight back by culture, by persons believing that has been the norm. Well, it is no longer the norm, because this Commissioner of Police, I intend to weed out all the rogue elements, make life difficult for them. If I have to reassign, if I have to transfer, if I have to monitor until we get enough intelligence to turn that into evidence for them to be charged, I would so do. And this here definitely must be done, because the 97% plus police officers who are hardworking, dedicated, it affects them. Because when they have these 3% odd who they come into the service just about themselves, because they forgot what they swore an oath for when they were recruits. So now it becomes about me and not about the bigger picture. When these individuals tip off criminal elements, when these individuals cover for gang leaders, when these individuals have drug blocks, and then when the 97% go out there to perform, it is difficult for them to be productive because of these rogue elements. So I will continue to shuffle the pack, continue to make life very miserable for them. And if there are organizations who feel that your job is to defend and to be the legal representatives for questionable activity, well then you have your job to do, I have mine. And it will be a contrast in job specs. I'd like to move on now to the second matter, which has to do with what the police intends to do to deal with reduction in criminal activity, more so gang-related murders. For the year so far, the ratio for serious crime, there's been a 34% reduction in serious crime. a 29% reduction in violent crime, 11% reduction in murders, 41% reduction in woundings and shootings, 28% reduction in rape, incest, and other sexual offenses, 38% reduction in kidnappings, and 28% reduction in robberies. Now, you know, the first thing people say is because of COVID, but guess what? Jamaica had 16 murders in 48 hours during COVID. So it is not just because of COVID. It is because of the hard work by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the officers. And it is unfortunate, however, that we are here because what I intend to show, and Mr. Ford will now take over, the DCP of our operations, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have our job from deterrence, investigation, intelligence gathering, arrests, and charges being laid, and then the criminal justice system when it kicks in. But if we do all our work, and then when we do our work, persons are then given a free pass to get back out onto the streets to commit their act, and the act is committed, how can you blame the police service? So we are here to discuss the situation pertaining to what I'm asking the public to buy into and to understand. The only person that will have a problem with this would be criminal elements, the bail amendment bill. I'll just give some quick examples. In Brazil, the penalty for illegal firearm possession, 20 years imprisonment. Australia, the offense of unauthorized possession or use of a firearm, 14 years in prison. United Kingdom, penalty for possession of any type of firearm without a certificate, 14 years in prison. France, the punishment for illegally having a gun, 17 years in prison. Canada, persons who commit an offense is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment with an illegal firearm, 10 years in prison. Trinidad and Tobago, if you plead guilty, $5,000 TT and you're back out on the streets. We love to look at other countries, but that is what we have to encounter. We have a situation where we are doing our job, holding the individuals, arresting them. They're not even questioning the fact that because they know they've been caught red-handed. But now when you have a revolving door in a situation whereby you look at, oh, I didn't know it was on the, on the screen. You have a situation whereby these individuals, they know it goes in criminology where they say crime is a product of opportunity. The greater the deterrent, the less likelihood persons would commit a crime because they know there's a greater chance for them being apprehended and having the consequences. There are no consequences now because we have a situation when you're held, you immediately get bail, and then through the criminal justice system, several years will pass, and by that time the witness is no longer interested, the suspect may no longer be there, and then even if year after years the person decides to plead guilty, he is fined $5,000 TT. Wow. When young persons frustrated recently, the fine for them swimming was $50,000 TT. If someone has a bounce a $600 check, it is more than a fine for being in a possession of an illegal firearm. And what I find unfortunate is that the perception that people are trying to say that, listen, the person has a right to be given bail. But what about the constitutional right of freedom of people to live? And we don't have that. I don't know if the weapons are here, but I would like to take a look at the weapons. If you can just bring the rounds, please, Mr. Swanson. And while you bring it, just bring all the rounds and just place it here, please. This here is what I want to show you of where we have reached. Just 6 years ago, where's the 9 millimeter? 6 years ago, if you were found with a 9 millimeter round, one round like this, come fast. If you were held with this 6 years ago, parliamentarians saw it fit that that person must not get bail for 120 days. So 6 years ago, no bail for 120 days. 6 years later, if you're found with this, they find that you should get bail. This here is a 9 millimeter, on most occasions used on a sidearm. This is a 5.56, and then this is a 7.62. 7.62. This round, so we have parliamentarians 6 years ago stating it is okay for you to get, you must have no bail if we are caught with this. But this, a 7.62 round, this could go through 5 different people at the same time if they all stand behind each other. And we are stating, we have politicians stating that if somebody is found with this, they have a right for bail. I will then move on to the sidearm. Same thing. With a sidearm 6 years ago, politicians said that no bail if you're found with a sidearm for 120 days. Now you're found with semi-assault rifles and you're stating that no, you have a right to get bail. So if I could clarify, I'll just ask Mr. Ford to continue, please.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Good afternoon to all present. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago at this time experiences what I refer to as an eerie calm as it relates to murders. That eerie calm is because, as we stand today, compared to last year, we have a 10% reduction in murders. By way of figures, it says that we have 174 murders today, compared to 193 last year. But we must not be lulled into a sense of false security because of that calm that I spoke about. Because firearms continue to be the weapon of choice for all or most criminals in our country today. The West Trinidad and Tobago Police Service continues assiduously towards the reduction of crime, the fear of crime, and the protection and service of our citizens. We have to be aware that the weapon of choice out there continues to be the firearm. But this continues to be a challenge to us because of the number of illegal firearms that exist throughout Trinidad and Tobago. What makes this significantly worse is that the criminals have graduated from using pistols and handguns towards now using high-powered rifles like the AR-15, which discharges the 5.56 round that the Commissioner spoke about just now, and the AK-47, which discharges the 7.62 round, which can inflict more injuries on human beings and do significantly more damage and destruction than any pistol can do today. A pistol today can be called what we used to call a long time a pea shooter. So, ironically, of all the homicides that have been committed between the year 2015 and 2019, a whopping 79% of those homicides have been committed using firearms. And what we are seeing is a preponderance of high-powered weapons being used by way of AR-15s and AK-47. Now, in the year 2017, by way of comparison, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service retrieved a total of 9 AK-47s and 7 AR-15s from the streets. In 2018, the figures were 7 AK-47s and 6 AR-15s. 2019, we have seen a huge increase in our recovery of high-powered rifles. In 2019, we had 6 AK-47 rifles and a whopping 38 AR-15 rifles that were retrieved from the criminal element in Trinidad and Tobago. Those weapons, as I said, assisted in contributing to roughly 79% of the homicides that were committed for the years between 2015 and 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crystal clear that years ago, when the weapon of choice was a pistol or even a revolver, today the criminal element holds tightly to the rifles. I recall about 3 or 4 months ago, while speaking to a young man that was detained, and he was sharing some information and the criminal elements' love affair with rifles. And I asked him, what causes you all to prefer the rifle as opposed to the pistol? And he said, Chief, when you squeeze the trigger from a pistol, one round going off. He said, Chief, you ever hear this? One squeeze, Chief. He said, and everybody fall flat. That is the reality of life in Trinidad and Tobago today, when we, the police, have to deal with the criminal element. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is of the firm and unflinching view that the powers that be need to take a second, third, or even a fourth look at how we go forward dealing with the criminal element who we find in possession of these high-powered rifles. By the nature of what they are, these are weapons of mass destruction. And with the element that any one of us here in this room can take up one of these weapons, full with a cartridge of ammunition, and by just one squeeze of your trigger finger, you can kill 20, 30, 40 persons. That is a horrendous thought, if ever there was one. I think the time has come for us to really seriously consider some type of imprisonment, some type of retardation of freedoms, some type of system whereby when persons are found with these weapons in their possessions, they are not allowed to walk out freely, and as they say, with a get out of free jail card, and go and acquire another one. And bear in mind that we recovered about 44 of those weapons last year. And based on international calculations, what you recover represents a percentage of what is out there. Many of you, I am sure, where you live in neighborhoods, might be hearing songs at nights. And well before you used to be hearing the one pop, 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 you are hearing volleys. And I am sure that you shudder and wonder why when the police hold those persons, they do not remain inside for a period of time to contemplate and probably change their ways. I want to thank the Commissioner for this opportunity to share my views with you all. There's a lot more that I can say, but I just want to conclude by saying that these weapons are serious tools, tools that are preferred by the criminal element in our country. They are tools, weapons of mass destruction. And the criminal element has them for one purpose, and it is to inflict harm, mayhem, and a multitude of dangers to the citizens of this Trinidad and Tobago. And we have to find a way that when we find persons in possession of these weapons, that we curtail their freedom for a period of time, so that the citizens of this country can breathe a little easier. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ACP Ford. So I said in the last decade, over 75% of homicides were carried out by persons using illegal firearms in this country. The fact is if someone is in possession of an illegal firearm, it means that they have an intent to kill. And what we are getting now is that we see that it's a criminal justice system that we must be able to catch the person in the act. We have been doing research and work with our international allies, and it is very difficult, if at times not impossible, for us to be able to catch someone in the act 2 o'clock in the morning on a side street, especially when no one would have seen anything. The only time that persons see any shooting is when police are involved. So the best way for us to to reduce homicides is to be able to apprehend the individual prior to him committing the act. And that is straightforward. What I find amazing, as I said, and I will show it again, 6 years ago, this was seen by politicians, a sidearm. 6 years ago, if you had this, the politician said no bail for 120 days. We now look 6 years later, sometimes the same politicians. So this year, is no bail. This, bail. So you have this weapon, and you're now saying the person must have bail. 6 years before, with this weapon, there was no bail. That I find very, very strange. And we can even go back to when someone was held with 9 assault rifles, and persons, very interesting, said no. Well, if the weapons were in different compartments, you really can't say that they were weapons. Now, when you look at, say, another country, if someone is found with a detonator, a timer, and a chemical, do you think that person will not be arrested for terrorism? Do you think any country will say, well, there are different pieces, there are different compartments, so it's not really a bomb that the person has? I am asking us again to start looking after the well-being of the law-abiding citizens in this great country and stop putting the rights towards criminal elements. Because we have a situation, as I said here, this 9mm round, compared to the 5.56 and 7.62, which is used for these weapons, it makes it now almost a sure kill. When we speak about one shot, one kill, I don't have the statistics here, but there have been over 50% reduction in woundings and shootings this year over the same period last year. So you will think that if there are 50%, there's a 50% reduction in woundings and shootings, that you will then show that there's supposed to have a 50% reduction in murders. Not so. Because as years gone by, there were more woundings and shootings, but the woundings and shootings was based on the individuals using this, a 9mm. So even though, thankfully, because of good policing, good operations, good patrols, high intensity, heavy visibility, a strong deterrent, it means that the police have made it more difficult for the woundings, for the shootings to take place. But the fewer shootings that take place now have become more deadly because of the type of weapons that the criminals are using. So there's been a 50% reduction in shootings, but the murders stay the same because the fewer shootings have now become more deadly because the type of weapons that are being used. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, this reminds me of something along the line that we are fishermen, and we are told to go out there every day to look for sharks. But when we catch the sharks, we are then told you need to throw it back in the water. And then when we get back to shore, the persons will then tell us, well, you have no catch at the end of the day. And then when the citizens go out in the water and they are destroyed and killed by the sharks, you want to blame the police. We can't be fishers of good men and trying to go out there, and when we apprehend these individuals, all that happens is for them to be released the following day. There is absolutely no way we could win that. It is like this is a war zone out there. You cannot be in a war zone when you're apprehending the prisoners of war, and then the convention is telling us that as soon as you apprehend them, you must release them the next day for them to go back out onto the killing fields to kill again, or to try to kill again. It cannot work that way. You'd have seen the data from other countries. And again, we have held 7,647 persons for illegal firearms and ammunition in the last 5.5 years. You could break that down to just about 800 per annum. It means that every single day for the last 5.5 years, our police officers have held more than 2 persons every single day for possession of an illegal firearm and ammunition. Now, when we do our data, we have shown that there are just about 800 shooters, 800 persons with illegal firearms. So arguably, it looks possibly that we have held all of these shooters, all these persons with firearms, 3 and 4 times over, and we hold them, they laugh at us, they come back out, they get another firearm, and they go back out onto the streets to kill. How could that be our fault? We have done our job. Every day we hold 2 persons. If we had a system similar to what I just showed you, Brazil, Canada, Australia, France, United Kingdom, it meant that the 800 persons who want to kill would be where they belong. And if they are where they belong, they cannot use this. This does not kill people. What kills people are the persons who hold it. So as much as it is important that we can try to seize the firearms, which we also do, because we seize over 5,000 odd firearms in the last 5 years. Almost 3 firearms every day we seize. But if more firearms enter the country than what we seize, there would be a surplus of firearms. So the objective here is to be able to go after those who hold the firearms and use it. It is impossible for the police to try to reduce murders if every time we arrest these individuals, this one firearm with 2 magazines can kill over 50 persons in seconds. 9 assault rifles with the magazines could have killed over 500 persons. And there may be a situation, if someone is held, he will get bail the next day. Only in this country this could take place. I am asking the public, stand fast on this one. This is not about politics. This is not about pointing fingers. This is not about red and yellow. This is about red, white, and black. You want us to reduce crime? We can reduce murders by 50%. But when it is we apprehend the individuals, the enemies of the state with these firearms, we need to make sure they stay where they belong, which is behind bars. The last point I'd just like to make mention of pertaining to a situation again. For the month of May, there has not been one gang-related murder. Again, as I said, some people say that they will say it's because of COVID. The fact is that the issue of gangs getting state contracts has continued to be a very serious matter in this country. And I'd just like to make mention of this quickly today. Gangs fighting with each other over state contracts has continued to be a major problem. They put hits to use, and they use the profit from the contracts to put hits on other persons, to buy more weapons, to use it as a front for drug blocks, to purchase more drugs, and again, as I said, to put hits on other gang members in other areas where they have state contracts. Then there's the extortion situation, where legitimate businessmen who have contracts, they get these state contracts, and then they are forced by criminal elements to pay protection money, or else they will not be able to complete their project. This has been going on for over 15 years in this country. And the reason I could speak about it is that I was, in fact, in another place, and I fought it down. And I was actually told by persons that is the way it is, not on my watch. I was in a certain position then to fight it down, and I'm in a certain position now, and I intend to fight it down. Presently, intelligence has revealed the gangs who have the state contracts. We have names, we have companies, who they use as fronts, the type of contracts, and where they're getting it, and the cost. Now, there's a difference between intelligence and evidence. So I know all of a sudden, they want to be law enforcement experts will say, well, why don't you arrest them? In the United States, they are fully aware of persons who are terrorists. They don't have enough evidence as yet to arrest them, but they're not going to let them be in the White House. And this is where common sense comes in. If we're aware that these individuals continue to act and use the profit that has become the catalyst towards gang warfare. The reason for the whole month of May, there's not been one murder gang-related. And there's a reason for that. Because there's no state contract out there for them to fight for. And again, there's a variety of different places, regional corporations, development companies, ministries, CPEP, URP, HDC. And before persons decide to ramage, everything is always based on politics. This has been going on for the last few administrations over the last 15 years. So no one can point fingers at each other. This must stop. The contracts vary from cutting trees, box drains, drainage and irrigation, construction of roads, repairs to bridges, latrine eradication, fencing, construction of drains, buildings of homes, homework centers, play parks, plumbing, electrical repairs, construction of car parks, demolition of centers, recreational ground maintenance, planting of painting state buildings, provider of security for projects in the state, construction of walls, so they get subcontracts, seating accommodation for sports fields, upgrade works, I have it all. And then again, I said, there are large markups that take place and given due to these awards. Now what happens, this is not to blame anyone. The persons who provide these contracts, on many occasions, they may not be aware. Some may be aware and they're in strategic positions to assist, which means that that person could also be culpable because they're now aiding and abetting in gang-related activity. And then there's also the situation of persons being intimidated. In preparation for the return of state contracts, we intend to form policies and strategies to put an end to this or to reduce it as quickly as possible. The Prime Minister, as the Chair of the National Security Council, and the Minister of National Security, they have condemned these actions, and they want it to stop. So it is my job to ensure that I adhere to the directive of the Chair of the National Security Council for me to put an end to it. We have no intention to bury our heads in the sand and hope that it goes away based on who approved it. So what we intend to do is to meet with all relevant persons who provide the contracts for such goods and services. And again, if it varies from different organizations, ministers, board chairmen, CEOs, general managers, corporation representatives, we intend to meet with them, bring it to their attention, so no one can say that they are not aware. As I said, it is irresponsible for me to watch this and to do nothing about it. If by any chance these individuals get these contracts and they're doing it for good, and they're using it towards helping their community, that is not an issue. But as I said, the profits here have become the catalyst towards crime taking place in this country and murders. We need to put an end to state contracts, and the police service, we have to play our part. So we intend to have proper dialogue with the relevant stakeholders to bring it to their attention and to try to put an end to state contracts being held by criminal elements who use the profit towards committing murders. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, we are open for questions. Can I please ask if there are the questions at this time? I know that there are 3 major topics that we discussed today. If it can be related specifically to what we discussed today, please, as much as possible. Thank you.
Commissioner, good afternoon. Mark Besant here from Guardian Media Limited. I have 4 questions. Maybe one could be answered in one shot. No pun intended. Have you all looked at the recruitment of people in the police service, as well as I know you could only speak for the police service. There is this code that there are a number of gang leaders across the country that would encourage people in various areas to apply to become a member of the police service. And in so doing, they then become an informant for that gang leader, right? There is also the prevalence of uniforms you see across the board, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service uniforms, even vests and so on, ending up in the hands of criminals, as well as army gear as well. Have you all seen a pattern emerging in relation to that? Thirdly, in reference to the guns you speak about, have you all seen a prevalence of guns, the relationship of gang leaders meshing with either complicit businessmen or even law enforcement personnel in helping to facilitate this gun trade? And I think the last question I had deals with what you just alluded to about state contracts. Following the local government elections recently, have you all seen an uptick in state contracts being awarded to questionable persons who are supposedly community leaders? And do you all anticipate, with the general elections just a couple months away, that kind of behavior will prevail going forward? I know you have said in the past that you all have set out certain policies and you all hope to get those things off and running quite soon.
Yes, okay, the last one first. Yes, but I think the more we come out and make it very transparent, bring it to the country, listen, we are aware there's a clear and present danger pertaining to persons giving state contracts to criminal elements. And if it is that we now need to go forward and meet with the relevant stakeholders, so they cannot one of my favorite television series years ago, Hogan's Heroes. They can't come like Sergeant Schultz and say they know nothing. We are going to let you know. We are bringing it to your attention. What you are doing, you are providing state contracts to criminal elements. So if it is that they continue to do it, well then they now will now have a part to play to justify why are you giving contracts to criminal elements. The police service, we have asked and made a recommendation, I have sent it to the Minister of National Security, that all that is required to put an end to it is that we are aware that this has become a problem. 15 years ago, the homicide rate would have been just less than 200. It has gone to over 500 almost every year now. And the reason for it is because of state contracts. And again, this is not no political party or supporter can point fingers at the other. This has been happening for the last 15 years and it has continued. And what my job is to make sure I put an end to it. This present Prime Minister, he said it is not to be condoned. So I intend to do my job. Now, if it is that we intend to bring forward to the public and bring forward to the individuals, that yes, we have seen it, is it either, Mark, is one or two things, either the persons who provide it, they are not aware, or they are fully aware, and they are basically aiding and abetting and have put themselves in strategic positions and probably get a profit out of it, or they're part of the system. And then there's the concern by certain persons that might give this to an individual because of intimidation. Going back to your first question, as it pertains to recruits, we do a comprehensive background check. There's enormous polygraph testing. A lot of work is done to make sure we get the right police officers in here. So I am virtually sure. I've seen what we do, what is done in other countries. We are on par with some of the best in the world in our recruiting process. What happens is when certain individuals, after a few years, they lose their way because you don't have systems to measure performance, make persons accountable. And I give you an example. In some countries, you do something wrong, you hand in your badge and you're gone immediately. Here, it's all sort of court order, injunction, pre-action protocol, because especially those persons who feel that their rights must not be infringed, it's about me, rather than the service. So therein lies the problem. It's not so much of the recruiting. What we have to do through the legal department, we are now putting the squeeze and checks and balances to deal with these rogue elements, and it is affecting some persons. But as in local parlance, who vex laws, we will continue to do so. As it pertains to the uniform, we have sent the requests based on, again, in line with what you just said. The uniform, we intend to change the uniform, and there will be certain things in the uniform that will be able to assist us to make sure that no one can impersonate police officers. Finally, as it pertains to the guns and the gangs, yes, there is a situation where we have seen police officers facilitating criminal elements. We work closely with the SSA and our intelligence agencies and our informants, and we are aware that there are police officers, he or she may have a drug block in the West. When we move that individual, they then sometimes try to take control of drug areas in that area as well. So people will say, well, why do we still have them as police officers? You cannot fire somebody based on intelligence, but we can reassign, realign, take them away from a strategic position that can cause them to affect our operations. So this is what we are doing whilst building a base to ensure that we can actually have someone removed. And that goes back to my point. 300 police officers we have on suspension. It's over $50 million per annum. Many of them are in prison. And again, this is not to cast anything on all the 300, but I think it is unfair to the taxpayers that we are spending $50 million per annum on officers that are not being productive. It is unfair to the police service because it gives the impression that I have 300 officers that are not there. And it is also unfair to many of the officers who may have been on suspension for over a decade for a situation that they should be on suspension for a few months. That is unfair to everyone. Through, again, the legal department, we intend to clean it up. It's either you're fired or you get back in the job and not have $50 million being wasted.
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioner. Shane Superville.
Yes.
Shane Superville from the Newsday newspaper here. I don't know if either you or Mr. Chandler would care to weigh in on this one with respect to drafting the policies to put before Parliament for tackling corrupt and rogue officers. That sounds like like more of a long-term solution. But in the short term, in the meantime, can you just give us some insight as to what you all will be doing or what strategies you all will be implementing to tackle corrupt officers? Well,
a quick win would have been, again, based on recommendations I got from other agencies internationally. Police officers, again, should we put police officers on contract? So we have enough information and intelligence to show that these officers, it's a clear and present danger and it endangers the lives of my other officers. So if you're given a 6-year contract, after 6 years, we may not renew it. But again, I am aware that if we say that, certain organizations will jump up because they say that the officer must have his right. When he gets in here, he must stay as a career officer for the next 33 odd years unless we could find him guilty of a crime. And again, this is why it is, in many instances, law enforcement agencies, you're not supposed to have more rights than the average citizen. It's supposed to be the other way around. So that there is an option, but we have situations where, again, sometimes you try to polygraph police officers, they would refuse. If it is that we might do drug testing now, random drug testing, but we are trying to find avenues where it is, we are aware. There are about just over 100 police officers, and we are fully aware of the names, what they've been involved in, who they associate themselves with, their surroundings. We look through different things, through background check, through working with the FIU and FIB of their finances. So there's a lot that we do. I don't know if Mr. Chandler will have anything.
Well, Commissioner, all I want to add to Shane's question is simply that, yes, there are long-term plans in train, and there are short-term plans. In terms of the regulations, particularly as it pertains to the disciplinary process, it's a bit cumbersome as it is now, and that being the case, in the short term, we want to look at that so that the dispensation of justice as the Commissioner alluded to, is there, because justice, you know, that is deterred is justice denied. So that in the instance, we want to push forward with tribunals on a faster process in order that people will have a hearing and they would have the opportunity to be heard, because natural justice provides for this, and this is something that needs to be dealt with, and not that years pass by and things that are simple that can be dealt with are not dealt with, and you have people on suspension there and just withering away. So we want to deal with those things in the short term with that in mind.
Just one last question. With respect, well, from a more operational standpoint, I don't know if DCP4 would care to weigh in on this as well. In terms of the assault rifles and heavy artillery, so to speak, have you all been doing anything different in terms of the seizure and so on? And if so, what have you all been doing more of on the ground in the streets to really, you know, come across and seize these weapons?
Well, firstly, we will continue to do the traditional aspect of what we have been doing. And what we'll be doing differently, now remember we have some numbers that you can call. We have our 555, 800 tips, we have the police app. We also are working with informants who continue to give us information. When we get that information, we act quickly, and that has led to the successes that we have had in seizing firearms. The thing is that we, the police officers, we are aware that we cannot be at every corner. There's a working relationship that we have with you, the public, and ourselves. So when we get the information, we respond quickly. Police officers work on information, the long and short of it. And we have been acting quickly, we have been seizing firearms, and we have been informing you all on every seizure that we have had.
Okay, and may I add again, Shane, going back to these two rounds here, the 556 and the 762, these are what can be known as cop killers. This can kill my police officers. Somebody who has a firearm like this, at times would be involved in confrontation with my police officers. A police officer being shot at with a 9mm compared to this. These are cop killers. Why would any country, with their assault, when you hold someone with this type of firepower that can kill my police officers, you are saying they have a constitutional right to be back out on the streets the next day? My take on it is we should throw away the key when we hold them.
And Commissioner, if I may just add quickly, please. Last week alone, between last week Sunday the 10th and Saturday the Saturday the 16th, because of that partnership between us and you all out there, we seized 20 firearms from on the streets. Coincidentally, 2 of those were high-powered rifles. So we continue to partner with you all. Give us the information. We are going to act, we are going to seize, and we are going to arrest persons. Those are our areas of responsibilities.
Okay. Mark, you had another question?
Just asking in reference to the... Sorry, I was asking in reference to the last question about the proliferation or the prevalence of guns coming into the country. And have you all seen, based on your information and intelligence, if you can, in some limited juncture, tell us if you have seen how these guns are now coming in, maybe in reference to 2 or 3 years ago. Is there more of a organized, coordinated venture by criminals, gang leaders, / with businessmen, with police officers? And are you all, what are you all looking at in terms of trying to stifle those operations of bringing in these high-powered weapons from South America as well as North America and even Europe?
I'll have Mr. Ford elaborate on that. Through the Minister of National Security, there's a joint effort between the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, especially dealing with the illegal ports of entry. Mr. Ford will elaborate on that, but I would just wish to add, there's also the perception and intelligence that we have that some of these weapons are entering through legitimate ports of entry. The police service, we have very little impact on involvement because we are not even allowed in those ports. So we only get involved when the weapons hit the ground in the country. And again, as you would have seen, we seize 2 or 3 weapons every single day. We are seizing weapons. So, but if it is that more coming in than we seize, but we are doing our job. What we ask now is for the country to do theirs and support the fact that these persons, when held, should not be given bail, and they should be of greater degree of sentencing as we have seen in other countries, not 5,000 TT. Mr. Ford.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, the Minister of National Security has sanctioned a multi-agency operation between the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Coast Guard, the Army, Ministry of Health, and other stakeholders. That operation allows us to have 4 levels of interaction between the criminal element and the land of Trinidad and Tobago. And that pertains, as the question you asked, Mr. Basant, to the illegal entries into our country. We have the Coast Guard outside there manning our borders to prevent the influx of illegal firearms, human beings being trafficked, illegal drugs, illegal ammunition. We also have a collaboration between the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Coast Guard, and the Army, providing security on the land to prevent and to interact with those persons when they hit shores. We have the divisional police officers interacting, and then we have investigators. We also have the Ministry of Health in case we counteract or we come into contact with the illegal immigrants, that they are screened and then they are quarantined before we continue with our investigations. We do daily and then weekly assessment of that operation that we have going on at present. And one of the successes that came out is that about a week and a half ago, the Coast Guard, whilst performing duties on the seas, encountered a vessel. The vessel, we do not know what it had on it, but the men seeing the Coast Guard started dumping crates overboard. Crates. They sank, the boats and all sank. There was a duty of care. We could not leave them out there to die. They were brought ashore. We interacted with our Venezuelan counterparts, and they were repatriated back to Venezuela. These operations are ongoing, and they continue to reap the necessary success that we expect. We have had a massive reduction in firearms and persons coming across the borders. We know they're going to shift, and part of the question when you ask about the collaboration, we have to appreciate that the criminal element will always be planning, always be assessed, and always shifting. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is an evidence-led organization. Again, it comes with the partnership with you all. And as we get the evidence, we shift to suit, we are proactive, we continue to prevent. The reality is that some will slip through. We have the ground forces, we have road check exercises, we continue to arrest people, we take them before the courts. So it is a collaborative effort to really protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago from the criminal element. It is hard, it is backbreaking work, but we have sworn to protect you all. And together with our stakeholders, we'll continue to protect you, and we will report to you at a weekly basis on our successes.
Commissioner, just a final question. I noticed you talked about the Coast Guard and the finding a ship, but there was a story I wrote about 3 weeks ago involving a vessel that was seized on the North Coast. And I found it very strange that the government and I guess the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service was unable to kind of give any clarity going forward about possibly intelligence that was provided by the U.S. And we have now seen 3 people that were brought before the courts recently for that seizure. So can you expand on that without going into the specifics as to how the operation came into being?
Yeah. Mr. Basant, you would appreciate that we would not be able to share everything with you all. We are partners with different countries, and they will provide intelligence to us. We provide intelligence to them. And for whatever it is that you shared, we want to thank you. And what is of import here is that many times when we have huge seizures, it will happen because we informed and the persons were held outside. On this occasion, because of collaboration, because of astute policing, we were able to apprehend the persons on that ship, and it is now history that we recovered over $600+ million worth of drugs. Persons are before the court. We will continue to collaborate with our partners, and you all have to appreciate that as far as we can inform, we will inform you of what is taking place, what has taken place. But you have to also understand that many times the information is sensitive. And even though we want to share it with you all, because we have nothing to hide, we want you as our partners, but you all have to appreciate that we cannot share everything with you all. But you will see the results, and we will continue to report to you on all the results that we have because of what you have been sharing with us.
And we might add some of the things that we are doing to assist, because it's not just about policing internally. We have the launch of the maritime unit, that the coastal patrol unit will be out shortly. There will be drones that will be coming out in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to complement our present air unit. So there's a lot that we are doing as well to see as much as we can. So yes, we are seizing 2 and 3 of these every single day. Yes, we are holding 2+ persons for the use of illegal firearms, but we're also trying to see what best we can do to complement and work with our other agencies in the Ministry of National Security. With that, just for information, we are aware of what was happening in COVID. We are looking at what was going to take place over the next month or two. The Minister of National Security, he has spoken to us, and there's a major operation that we would be kicking off in the next couple of days, working with the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force again to lock down specific areas. So if the country thought that they were seeing too many roadblocks and too many patrols over the last few weeks, well, hold on to your hats.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, members of the media, for joining us. We want to thank the Commissioner of Police and the members of the panel for the information that was given. Thank you very much. See you all next week, same time, same place.